Hey everybody, Shawn here. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is the Matthews Effects Architect V3 Foundational Overdrive Boost Pedal. This is a really versatile take on the ever popular Klon circuit. Basically, on a Klon pedal, you're going to get just silicon diode style clipping. With this pedal, you're actually able to choose between 3 different types of clipping. So you're going to get the more clonish silicon diode clipping, but you can also get germanium, which is going to be a little bit smoother style clipping, maybe a little bit tighter, a little more compressed, as well as silicon diode lift. Now that style of clipping is a very subtle clipping, and that's going to work better into a more kind of broken amp, something that you want to push. And we'll get into that in the demo. There's also a boost section. Now the boost section is really great on this pedal because you can choose between MOSFET style boost or silicon style boost, and we'll get into that as far as how that sounds in the demo as well. On the top of the pedal, let's check out the controls. Your top left is your output, so that's the output of the pedal. Right next to that is your mid control, and that's going to control your overall mids. You've got a bass control, and then down below you have your boost level, so that's going to be your silicon or MOSFET style boost. And by the way, that boost is completely independent and can be turned on and off separately from the overdrive or clipping. Right next to that is your treble. And then next to that is your gain, the overall gain. Now what I will say about the EQ is it's pretty active on this pedal, and as you crank it up, it does create more clipping or gain, and we'll get into that into the demo as to how that dials and actually how cool that is. Now on the bottom left of the pedal, you've got a foot switch that's going to turn on the overdrive section or the clipping section, and that's going to also include the EQ. And then on the top right, that's your independent switch for your boost section. And then of course you've got ins and outs on the top of the pedal. On the side of the pedal, you do have an external jack. If you want to remotely switch this pedal via TRS, you can certainly do that, and that's a really cool feature. And then if there's the clipping and boost selection switches on the side of the pedal for germanium, lift, or silicon in the clipping section, and then of course in your boost, either silicon or MOSFET. So yeah, without further ado, let's check out this Matthews Effects The Architect V3. Okay, let's check out the Architect. I'm going to start with my Bella amp dialed relatively clean, I would say pretty clean, and then maybe we'll switch to the Friedman dialed a little bit more dirty so we can demonstrate the pedal into a clean front end and then maybe a more broken front end. Now the way I'm going to start with this is I'm going to start with the overdrive, and then I'm going to add the boost to it. Now you can go the other way. You can use the boost as your foundation and then dial your overdrive, but just for me, I felt it was easier to go ahead and dial in my overdrive sound, pick whether I wanted to go silicon or germanium, and then go ahead and turn on the boost and enhance from there. So I think that's how we'll start. So here's just the guitar and the amp. Like I said, it's dialed pretty clean. I'll start with just the overdrive. So I've got it boosted just slightly above unity. Now we're in the silicon diode setting, which will be typically louder than the germanium. So that's a pretty nice sound already. And while I've got this dialed this way, let me go ahead and just roll the controls. It certainly has that kind of Klon mid bite there. So we'll start with the mids. You can hear some low mid coming in as I roll those up. Now as I turn it all the way up, it's also going to create gain. Which is a really cool sound. I like the mids maybe around noon because, like I said, it rolls in a little bit of the low mids as well. Just kind of fattens it up, but still gives you that mid kind of bark. Now let's check out the bass. I'll shut it all the way off. So we lose a little bit of volume. I'll go ahead and put it to noon. I'll start cranking it. Now the same thing is happening. We're getting a little bit more overdrive, and we're certainly going to get a little bit more output. And once again, that becomes a really cool feature as you're dialing this pedal in. And last but not least, let me hit the treble. Here's noon. Here's all the way up. And that sounds really nice. Let me go ahead and just roll the gain down, and then I'll roll it all the way up. So that's very little gain, almost just boosting. I'll go ahead and crank it. Really starts kicking in about there, and then I'll turn it all the way up. So we've already got a pretty cool sound just without using the boost. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the boost, and I'm going to add it as a silicon boost first. The difference between the silicon and the MOSFET boost is very subtle. I would say the silicon sounds a little more open. The MOSFET is a little more, I would say it's a little maybe compressed or tighter sounding, maybe less spread out, but it is very subtle. Okay, so let me turn that boost on now. So here's the boost off. There's a boost on. So everything just gets bigger and more spread out. Now this is an independent boost, so if I shut this off, the overdrive section, here's just the boost. Here's off. On. And I can switch it to the MOSFET. Here out it's a little bit softer, maybe a little more compressed. Switch it back over to silicon. Here a little more top end there. I like it in silicon, especially for this kind of sound. Now what I can do is in the overdrive section, let's switch to germanium. Now there's going to be a slight level drop just based on that style of clipping, so I'll go ahead and turn the output up. Now this is smoother and sweeter in the top end. So in that rhythm pass I did, that was pretty much all germanium for the solo sounds and all silicon for the rhythm sounds. Though I did on one of the high gain sounds, I switched to the Friedman and I dialed this pedal back a little bit. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and do that. I think we've got a pretty good idea of what it does into a clean amp. So let me bump over to the Friedman. It's a Dirty Shirley. I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. And I'm going to set it for silicon across the board. So we're going to do silicon boost as well as silicon clipping. So here's just the amp. You're going to hear a little bit of breakup. It's not super gainy, but there's some breakup there. Now if I just hit it with the boost, it sounds pretty cool, but keep in mind, when you use just the boost by itself, the EQ circuit is inactive. But here's what I really dug, was I turned the gain down and started dialing in my kind of higher gain voicings. So that sounds killer. I can go ahead and switch it back over to germanium. Maybe a little bit less gain, or at least it seems like less gain, a little bit less output, but a little bit tighter. Now, one thing that I want to show you too is there's a center position in the clipping that's called diode lift. I'll just switch to that really quick without touching anything else. So that clipping is way less tight, but it's also really ampy. There's quite a bit more low end there, that's why I'm rolling the bass off. So as you can hear, it's like the sky's the limit with all the different types of clipping and boost configurations as well as EQ configurations go with this pedal. If you've got further questions, go to the Matthews Effects site and check it out. And as always, I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and we will see you next time.